Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our hearing on the proposed 2018 Department of Public Utilities operating budget. Before we begin, I would like to thank everyone for their work and preparation for today's hearing, including Director of Public Utilities, Director Tracy Davies, Deputy Director Ann Aubrey, Assistant Director John Lee, who will be presenting this evening, and also Assistant Director John Ivanek. Thank you all again for your preparation or for being here. I'd also like to thank members of the public for taking the time to come down to City Hall and those tuning in from home to learn more about our budget process. I do wish to remind those members of the public who wish to speak tonight to fill out a speaker slip before the public testimony portion of the hearing, which will be after my questions to the department. The purpose of today's hearing is to review and comment on the proposed 2018 Department of Public Utilities operating budget, which is available online at www.columbus.gov/finance. This hearing is available to the public on the columbus.gov YouTube channel and is currently streaming live online on the CTV website and broadcasting on Spectrum Cable and WOW on Channel 3 and AT&T UVerse on Channel 99. I will now turn it over to Deputy Director Lee, who will provide the presentation.
Good evening, Councilmember Stinziano. Thank you for allowing me to present the Department of Public Utilities 2018 operating budget. Tonight I've prepared a presentation for you, some slides that I will go over some highlights of the budget, review some staffing changes, go over some revenue highlights for the department, and go into a little bit of detail on each one of the division's budgets. So the first slide that I have prepared is a total budget, overview of our total budget for the department. You can see there I presented what we actually spent in 2016, comparing that to our 2017 budget and what we have before us tonight, our 2018 budget. Overall, comparing 2018 to 2017 combined budgets, we are less than 1% growth. You can see each one of those in total. For each division, we held each one of those under 3%. The biggest change is probably the Water Operating Fund. I'll go into some more details on the 2.63 decrease for that fund. I will make note that these figures do include our Director's Office budget. That budget is about $29 million. That is split among each of the four divisions. You can also see there I have operations and maintenance expenses we call O&M. Those are a slight increase, still under 1%, about 0.12% there, with debt payments growing in order to support our robust capital program, both primarily on the water and sewer side. So we see growth from 17 to 18, about 2% there. And a small chart there just kind of showing you a breakdown of water and sewer, obviously comprising a large portion of the budget. Electricity behind that, about 14%, followed by storm. The next slide, just to give you kind of some very high-level highlights of the overall budget. It's really a continuation budget. We're not looking at any programmatic changes or additions in any of the divisions. We made strong efforts to control our costs across all categories, supplies and services, controlling overtime, and keeping our costs down through inventory supply control, sharing service contracts, and monitoring the size of our fleet. No change in our service levels. We'll continue to maintain high-quality service levels and meet our performance targets. One thing that I will talk about is a shift that we are proposing in moving staff from our customer service center over to our director's office budget. This will result in an increase in the director's office budget of about $9 million. We felt that was an operational decision that we felt better aligned those services with the department as a whole under the director's office budget, because the director's office budget has shared services that all divisions enjoy. We also, the budget incorporates, as I mentioned, a significant amount of debt service. When you look at our total debt service, we're just talking about 2018, but that supports 1 year out of our total 6-year capital program, which is about $2.3 billion. And finally, with this budget, we were careful to make sure that we implemented various strategic priorities of the mayor and complied by incorporating operational efficiencies. Next slide is it's kind of just an overview of our staffing summary. We do have quite a few employees in the department. We have a certain level of authorized strength, combining both full-time and part-time employees. Our total strength is 1,372 employees. We don't ever really go up to that point, as you can see from our actual numbers there in 15, 16, and our estimated in 17. We're still under 1,200 total employees. And I will note there in the director's office box, going from 2017 to 2018, you can see that shift of going from 131 over to 207 employees, and you can see the corresponding decrease in the Division of Water going from 494 down to 446. So overall, our budgeted strength is 1,279. It's likely that we will not get to that point. We will probably, at the end of 2018, settle more along the lines of around the actuals that we've seen of the most recent years. And, you know, we also take a vacancy credit, which I'll talk about in some of the divisions, to allow for hiring time. It takes several months to get some staff on board. Next slide is just an overview of our revenue. This is an example of sewer revenue versus expense and water revenue versus expense. In all funds, not just water and sewer, but in storm and power as well. Throughout 2017, we have been experiencing good, solid revenue growth. And this is a result of growing account growth and increased consumption as well. So we like to see revenues exceeding expenses every year to grow our fund balance. The next slide goes into our director's office budget. Our director's office actuals have been fairly consistent from 2015 to 16, as you can see. 17, the total budget was about 19.6. We are actually going to probably come in quite a bit lower than that, more around 16 million. We're estimating even that's a little bit even below the 2017 estimate at third quarter. The director's office budget is 29.7 million, and you can see it's a 51% increase, with the largest increase there in personnel line, going from 14.5 million in 17 up to 21.3, a 46% increase. And these costs will be shared among water, sewer, storm, and power. Water, they're allocated about 38% of the cost, sewer about 43%, storm 11%, and power 6% of these total costs. And the majority of this budget, as I mentioned, is mainly for personnel and purchase services. Not a lot of capital outlay in that budget. They're not purchasing any kind of vehicles or things of that nature. But the purchase services, those are for various technology agreements and professional service agreements that we have. Some summary points, as I mentioned, they are, the director's office does provide the administrative support. I listed some of those areas of support that they provide: human resources, fiscal, public relations, things of that nature. We have a large GIS section and a regulatory compliance section. The shift that we're talking about of moving the 69 employees from water over to the director's office is mainly focused on what we call our customer service center, but that includes our billing function, billing personnel, actual call center people on the calls taking customer calls about their bills, setting up accounts, and also our revenue support unit. We have a unit that actually takes in cash, reconciles with the treasurer, and gets money deposited. The director's office budget, we are focused on various strategic priorities, those including training and diversity programs. We have enhanced our training for all employees. And we're also we're continuing a billing system audit as an operational efficiency, reviewing all accounts, fixing billing and metering issues, and again, finally, some technology upgrades across the department, which for our billing system and our inventory management system. Moving on to the Division of Water, we see a total decrease of 2.6% when you incorporate the director's office budget. Without the director's office budget, just the pure water budget would be a negative 4.7%. Really, there's no programmatic changes within the Division of Water. There's going to be no decreased service levels. Again, it's just that shift of those personnel. Purchase services are a little less than 2017 budget due to some reduced chemical costs, and we see that materials and supplies are fairly flat. Debt service is a little down from the 2017 budget, but it's still above 2016 actuals, which we're seeing. We have some major water treatment plant projects that we're paying the debt service on now, so that's why we're seeing somewhat of a spike in the debt service. Next slide is just a few more highlights of the Division of Water. I talked about the vacancy credit. In this case, we're applying a 2% vacancy credit, basically loading all the personnel in that we plan to hire and then cutting back 2% just to allow so we don't over budget and increase rates unnecessarily. We incorporate that credit. You look at the distribution of the overall budget, the majority of it is 55% is for O&M, 45% is for debt service. You'll see a little switch in that, almost the exact opposite on the Division of Sewers. Continued operations, one of the things that we are undergoing in 2018 is our advanced metering infrastructure program. We will be going out for an RFP for that, and that will be a replacement program of all the meters in the system to upgrade them, incorporate some new technology so we can get better reads and have less people in the field doing meter reads. And we will continue with our current plant improvements, and we're also incorporating some more major upgrades, standby power to ensure that we don't have any outages. If we do, power will kick on, we're able to continue to provide and treat water. Our water line replacement program will again continue at an aggressive rate, about 30 to 35 million. For 2018, we did propose and council approved a 1% rate increase for the Division of Water, and that rate increase was based on the fact that the water fund has a good growing fund balance and revenues have been coming in strong, and we're meeting our financial targets for that division. Next slide is for the Division of Sewers and Drains. Overall budget with the Director's Office budget is an increase of about 2.8%. Some additional personnel are added to this budget, mainly to support our treatment plant operations and our engineering. Debt service, again, for the Division of Sewers is one of the largest increases. You can see there that it's increasing from 2017 to 2018 about 5.8%. Again, driven by the fact that we have to comply with our EPA regulatory requirements and maintain our timelines on our consent order. The transfer there line is, again, that's more debt service. It's just coded in that transfer line. That's for outstanding sewer revenue bonds. So our total debt service would be the combination of debt principal, debt interest, and the transfer. A few more highlights. Again, as I mentioned, how the difference in the distribution between sewers and drains compared to water. You can see that 41% of the budget is for operations and maintenance, with a large part for debt service, about 59%. A little bit higher vacancy credit on the sewer side, 3%. Most of those positions in 2018 will be for additional sewer maintenance workers and sewer equipment operators and probably water plant operators. We see a lot of turnover on those in those positions, and so that's pretty typical for each year to see those positions in there. When you look at the total budget, by program, the treatment process and our composting operation, in addition to our sewer maintenance section, comprises the majority of the budget. Overall, the fund has shown good growth. Revenues right now through November are estimated about 5% above 2016 actuals, and we continue to maintain strong reserves at around $125 million. Throughout 2018, we will continue our Blueprint Columbus program. We will continue construction in the Clintonville area, and that will continue probably for a couple years, and then we're soon going to be moving into our North Linden area. That's where construction will begin. That's a new phase of construction in 2018. On its heels is the Hilltop and Miller-Kelton area. And for 2018, Council approved a 2% increase for the Division of Sewers and Drainage. That will generate about $3.5 million in additional revenue on top of base sales. Couple more budgets. The Division of Sewers, Stormwater is somewhat of a small budget compared to Sewers and Drains. We're looking at close to $40 million. There's not many personnel in the Division of Stormwater. We have about 15 staff right now. The debt service of principal and interest, close to about $15 million. That is for stormwater improvement projects completed in neighborhoods to mitigate flooding. Since the Division of Stormwater does not have a whole lot of staffing and resources, what we do is we actually share resources with the Sanitary Division. So that's why the purchase services line of $21 million is so high. That's because what we do is we pay our Sanitary Division for engineering support and for vehicle support and support of they have employees in the Sewer Maintenance Operations Center that actually go out and perform maintenance on our stormwater system, so we have to reimburse them for those costs. We also, part of that cost, that actual cost is about $8.5 million. Another large component, about $8.7 million, is for snow and street sweeping services that we reimburse the Department of Public Service. We've found that keeping our storm sewers free of snow and debris allows for better concentration of rainwater into the proper facilities. The capital outlay item is increasing. That one kind of jumps out there of 549% increase, going from a budget of $67,000 up to $435,000. That is because we're planning to buy a street sweeper that costs about $400,000. A couple more highlights again on the Division of Stormwater. We did not apply vacancy credit just because of the limited personnel with this fund. And, debt service is somewhat limited, as I spoke to, with more on the O&M side. As far as rates for 2018, the council did approve a 1% rate increase for that division. Again, growing fund balance. Revenues for 2017 are estimated to be about 3.4% above 2016 levels. The final division that I'll discuss is our Division of Power. This budget is about $86.6 million. Comparing that to 2017 budget with the Director's Office budget allocation incorporated, we're about a 2.8% increase. And so the majority of the expenses, you can see that $59.6 million, $58 million of that will go to our wholesale purchase power costs that we incur. We incur those costs to supply power to our customers. And so the energy rates that we have locked in have been very favorable. They're pretty consistent with the energy rates from last year, but we are seeing somewhat of an increase in transmission costs and capacity costs, so we've allowed for some increase there. The capital outlay line item for the Division of Power of $3.2 million, we're seeing an increase there of 11%. We're adding a few more vehicles. That line item also is the one that we use to purchase transformers and poles and wire to support our distribution crews. And the final slide here is just a small summary on the Division of Power. Again, much of these things I've already talked about. Same case as far as the overall fund. The fund balance has been growing. We've seen a good growing customer base. We've made strong efforts to continue to grow that base over the years. We're seeing more residential growth in the Division of Power's service area, mainly which is in the core of the city. So we've also seen fairly consistent commercial growth as well. The debt service is fairly low, and we are looking in 2018 about servicing some additional debt for the division. One particular component is a $2 million loan that we're finalizing with the state of Ohio for our LED street lighting program. So there are no rate increases planned for the Division of Power in 2018, and we will continue our day-to-day operations with that division, adding streetlights, converting most of those from high-pressure sodium to LED, and increasing our distribution system and enhancing it as well. So with that, Councilmember Stinziano, I'll close my presentation and open it up to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, for the presentation. I do, as always, have a few questions. Since we ended with the Division of Power, I'll start with that conversion of LED streetlights being underway and the goal to replace ultimately the city's 53,000 streetlights. What is the likely impact on the budget for 2018 and then moving forward?
Thank you, Councilmember Stinziano. That project is estimated about $3.5 million, and recently we applied for a energy loan through the state of Ohio, Ohio Energy Loan Program it's called. And so we applied, we were accepted for a $2 million loan at a 2% interest rate over 15 years. So we're planning on bidding that project in the beginning 2018 with completion probably around the end of 2018. It's going to take about a year to convert those 4,500 lights. And the budget impact, as illustrated in the 2018 budget, is about $150,000 in principal and interest. So if we added another $2 million, if we received another loan in the upcoming years, it would be the same, roughly the same, depending on the current interest rate environment.
Thank you. Then kind of some of the bulk when we talk about water and sewer. So as you mentioned, and as we recently passed through ordinance on the recommendation of the department and the Sewer and Water Advisory Board, the council did institute a small increase in water, sewer, and storm rates for the upcoming year with an average of 1.53% in the typical residential bill. I know we had a lot of discussion before, but I'll ask again since I think it's always helpful. Is this smaller increase enough to sustain the department's operations without significantly larger increases in the future?
Councilmember Stinziano, yes, we believe that it is enough to sustain the operations. We believe that the rate increases are reasonable and responsible. When we look at our rates, we look out about 10 years. We do a projection in about 10 years, and we don't, looking at those, you talk about the 1.53%, that's an aggregate rate when you combine the 2% for sewer, 1 for water, and 1 for storm. So we're not looking at an aggregate rate to exceed 5% over the next 10 years. That's kind of what the landscape looks like. And so the reason that we were able to keep up the rates low is because whenever we looked at our projections, we saw that account growth was increasing, consumption was increasing, resulting in, larger revenue increases projected for 18. But we've also made some operational efficiencies, which, again, I think have helped keep those rates low. For instance, and with the assistance with the city auditor, they basically led the effort. We had several bond refundings due to the low interest rate environment. We were able to save a lot of money on interest. That really helped us out here in the last few years. And we've also moved a lot of our construction projects into our Ohio EPA loan program versus actually bonding those projects, because the advantage of that is we're allowed to pay principal and interest after the project is complete. So that helps mitigate rate increases as well. So all those factors contribute to keep the rates low. So we feel pretty comfortable about the 1.53%.
And along that theme, and something we've had a lot of discussion about this past year as well, and I always think it's helpful to explain how residents outside the city are provided with our utilities versus those inside Columbus, and why the residential utility bill would be different between the city and those that are outside the city boundaries.
Councilmember Stinziano, thank you for that question. Right now, outside residents are provided water and sewer services. They don't receive any storm services. And what we have in place is we have contracted areas, and such as the suburbs, Dublin, Upper Arlington, Worthington, Grandview, those, just to name a few. And then we have the county area. And our city code, what we do is we charge about 1.3 times inside rates for water to the suburbs and about 1.5 times for the county. And all those costs, it's very standard across the country for water and sewer utilities to do that. And a lot of it is based on a cost of service. Many utilities, including ours, do a cost of service study, which helps justify those costs. And based on our current studies, we are in line with those multipliers. And a lot of times these costs have to consider the pumping distance going from our plants out to, traveling several miles, over the infrastructure to get to it, these destinations. We have to provide pressure. We're building new sewers and increasing our water treatment capacity to allow for growth. And there's also one important component, that bonding risk. Whenever we go out and we sell bonds to support our infrastructure, if ever it happened we were to default on those bonds, it does not fall on the backs, it only falls on the backs of the city residents. Suburbs would not have to experience any potential property tax increase to pay those bonds back. So there's somewhat of a bonding risk inherent in that calculation as well. We've also seen, when you look at the numbers, consumption has actually been increasing more on the outside than it has in the inside city, as well as account growth. So all those dynamics go into why we charge outside rates that are higher.
Appreciate the explanation. Still in the same kind of area, but one thing I know that's been very important from the council is the department's offering low-income and senior resident discounts on residential sewer and water bills. One thing we always discuss is the possibility in the future of further expanding those discounts for those residents who have difficulty in keeping up with rising utility costs. If you could speak a little bit about the kind of department's approach and also what the budget impact of those discounts are.
Sure, Councilmember Stinziano, we're happy to provide our low-income and senior discount programs, and we offer those on our residential sewer and water bills, and we also have an electric discount program. So we've got for the low-income program, there's qualifiers, and it's a 20% commodity charge reduction on both water and sewer. And if you're a senior, you could have your service charge waived, and if you're a low-income senior, you could also have the commodity discount. Now, if you're just an electric customer, you could get a 10% reduction or discount on the electric consumption charges. So we didn't make any changes to these programs in 2018. There is a possibility of expanding these. If anything was to probably expand, it would be to look again at the criteria or likely to increase the percentage of the commodity, say, whatever that may be, 20% going up to another percentage. When you look at the numbers and you look at the overall program, over the past few years, it's been pretty steady as far as applicants to the low-income program. We've actually seen more growth on the senior side. And we are right now exploring looking at more options on the electric senior discount program. We're still researching that, looking at the costs for that program with some review with our Sewer, Water, and Advisory Board and some other stakeholders. You had asked about what these programs actually cost the department from a budget impact. If you look at it, the water and sewer is, the discounts there are probably the largest cost. I would say they're close to about $1 million. The water and sewer discount is about $520,000, and I want to say that the senior is about $509,000 a year. The electric discount is really nominal. It only costs us about $10,000 in foregone revenue for that program. So.
And I only have one more question, and you mentioned it or alluded to some of it in the presentation, but that's the city's ongoing response to the consent decree. The department continues our implementation of Project Blueprint with implementation of green infrastructure throughout the city. Could you speak a little bit to how the department will continue to do public outreach efforts regarding the program into next year, and a little bit what the costs associated are for implementation of Project Blueprint?
Thank you, Councilmember Stinziano. Yes, as I noted, right now we are still under construction in Clintonville, moving into North Linden. So we are on the ground in Linden now, and we have been on the ground in Linden as well. What we have in place as far as support and costs to support the outreach effort, right now in the department we have 2 full-time staff members. We have a public relations specialist, and we also have a community relations specialist. Just hired the community relations specialist. And so that's a cost, obviously, to support them. But we also have a contract, an outreach contract with a consultant. That cost is probably around $217,000 a year. That's a 3-year contract, so $70,000 or so a year. We plan to continue that, go out for an RFP as that expires to continue that. When you look at our overall efforts, what we're doing from an outreach standpoint and what we did in Clintonville, what we'll continue to do in Linden, and we are doing is area commission meetings, held several of those, mailers, having public meetings, one-on-one visits with residents. We have a hotline that they can call. As you're aware of, they can go on our website. We usually have a construction liaison out there that's part of the contract, the consulting contract. They are there on site, and we also provide weekly updates. What are we doing differently from some of the lessons that we've learned? One of the biggest things is we're meeting with residents at some of these places earlier in the design phase. We're getting out there. We were meeting with them at 60% design, saying, here's what we plan to do. Actually, we're looking at meeting with them more at the 30% design phase, so they can have more involvement, they can see how, they can have input to help shape kind of the design of the area. And we've also been making several field changes actually during construction. So when we're out there, when the contractor's out there, and there is a condition that we can resolve with the resident, we are actually making some field changes. You know, if there's a major tree there or something like that, or some other thing that can be incorporated that doesn't require obviously significant design. But so working definitely one-on-one with these folks. So we'll continue to do those same things in Linden, and as we move into the Hilltop in 2019 as well.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, for the presentation and answering my questions. I do appreciate all the audience that's here today, but no one submitted a speaker slip. So with that, we will go to the closing. Really do appreciate the department and the members of the leadership staff for their work and getting prepared for the budget, but also through the past year. As we've seen, Mr. Lee, you know the numbers well and delve very diligently in those, and really appreciate you and again all the leadership staff for your work as issues come up. Also want to thank the wonderful and fantastic council staff, John Oswald, Trenton Weaver, Kevin McCain, and Matt Erickson for their work and preparation for today's hearing. I encourage those looking for more information to visit the Department of Public Utilities website at www.columbus.gov/utilities or call 614-645-8276. If you're looking for information on the overall proposed 2018 operating budget, I would encourage you again to find that information online at www.columbus.gov/finance. And you can always contact me at the office at 614-645-8084 or email me at mstinziano@columbus.gov. This hearing is adjourned. Thank you.